Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm a dad of two kids, my daughter who's turning 6 in a couple weeks, and my 10-month-old son. My wife and I both work full-time jobs, but we always make time for our kids. We're not rich by any means, but we do okay. We live in a small town where everyone pretty much knows everyone, so we're used to friendly interactions when we're out and about. For my daughter's birthday this year, we decided to let her pick out her own presents instead of surprising her. We told her she could choose either 3 small items or one bigger gift. She was so excited about this grown-up responsibility that she'd been talking about it for weeks. So yesterday, we loaded up both kids and headed to the big box store on the edge of town. You know the one, they sell everything from groceries to car tires. We made our way to the toy section and my daughter was in heaven. She wanted to look at everything. I pulled something down from a high shelf, she'd examine it like a tiny scientist, and either tell me she wanted it for her birthday or shake her head no. My wife was doing the same thing on the other side of the aisle. Other customers walked by and smiled at us. Most people think it's cute when kids get so serious about picking out toys. After about 30 minutes, we had 10 small items in the cart. We told her to narrow it down to 3, but she gave us those big eyes and begged for 4 of them instead. Being the pushovers we are when it comes to our kids, we agreed to 4 presents. Then came the hard part, explaining that she couldn't take the toys home right then. We had to put them back and secretly buy them later. She pouted and sighed dramatically, giving us the most heartbroken response only a 6-year-old can master. Eventually, she agreed with obvious disappointment. My wife suggested getting a snack from the fast food place inside the store to cheer her up. She took both kids toward the restaurant while I stayed behind to put the rejected toys back on the shelves and then secretly purchased the chosen ones. This is where things went sideways, and I only know what happened because my wife told me afterwards. She was walking toward the restaurant carrying our son in his carrier and holding our daughter's hand when she heard someone politely asking for her attention behind her. She figured it was just another customer trying to get past, so she kept walking. Then she heard it again, louder this time. Still nothing alarming, so she turned the corner. That's when she felt a tap on her shoulder. My wife turned around and found herself face to face with this middle-aged woman who immediately started yelling. Karen told her that she'd been waiting for minutes to be helped because my wife was busy with some guy, but now wanted to know where she was taking his children. My wife was confused but tried to be polite, explaining that these were her own children. Karen got even louder at that, demanding to know why she had children while she was working and telling her that she should use daycare for things like that. While my wife was trying to process what this woman was even talking about, Karen reached toward our baby's carrier like she was going to grab it. My wife pulled back instinctively, which woke up our son. He started crying immediately. My wife positioned herself between our daughter and this crazy woman and quickly tried to text me for help. She managed to send a message asking for help before Karen actually slapped the phone out of her hand, yelling that employees shouldn't be on their phones while working. My wife tried to explain that she didn't work there and never had worked there. Karen insisted that she obviously worked there because she'd seen my wife taking items down for some guy's daughter and putting them back multiple times. My wife attempted to explain that it was going to be her daughter's birthday soon and they were shopping for presents. Karen just waved her hand dismissively, saying that was something she should do when she wasn't working and without her kids there, asking if she thought she could just do whatever she wanted. Our daughter must have sensed something was wrong because she grabbed onto my wife's legs and hid behind her. My wife put her hand on our daughter's head to comfort her and tried to tell Karen that she did not work there. Karen screamed that she did work there and demanded to see her manager. Now our daughter was genuinely scared. My wife was getting that protective mother rage that every parent knows, the kind that makes you capable of lifting cars off your kids if necessary. Her voice started rising too. Meanwhile, I was putting toys back on shelves when I got that text asking for help, with no other context. I tried calling back but got no answer. Then I heard my son crying loudly from somewhere in the store. Every parent knows that sound, when your baby goes from content to absolutely distraught. I abandoned the shopping cart and started running toward the crying. I could hear my wife's voice getting louder too, and some other woman screaming about getting someone fired. I rounded the corner to see my wife trying to calm a terrified daughter while holding a screaming baby, and this woman yelling at them both. I asked what was going on. Karen turned to me like I was her salvation, telling me she was finally talking to a manager. She demanded that I fire this employee of mine, calling her terrible and saying she couldn't even leave her children at home while working. I looked at Karen completely confused. The employees here wear blue shirts with name tags. Managers wear yellow vests. My wife was wearing a dark red sweater and jeans. I was in a green football jersey. No name tags, no vests, nothing that could possibly be mistaken for store uniforms. I told her that my wife didn't work there and that she was my wife. That was apparently the wrong thing to say. Karen exploded, asking if she was my wife and demanding to know how I could let her bring our children to work. She asked if we were so broke that we couldn't afford a babysitter. She didn't pause for breath, just kept screaming at us about irresponsible parents and terrible employees. Other customers were staring now, some taking out their phones. Finally, security showed up. 2 officers in store uniforms walked over, and Karen immediately pointed at us, telling security that she wanted both of us kicked out and demanding to talk to whoever owned the store right now. The security officers didn't even look at us. They looked at Karen and told her they'd take her to the office. They started escorting her away. She looked back at us, pointing dramatically and asking what about us. One of the officers told her they'd come back and deal with us after she met with the owner. Once they were gone, I took the baby carrier from my wife so she could pick up our daughter, who immediately wrapped her arms around her mom's neck like she never wanted to let go. It took us a while to get our son calmed down. I found some chairs in the garden section and sat down while my wife took our daughter to the bathroom. I was still trying to soothe our baby when someone approached me. A store manager apologized for bothering me and said they wanted to apologize for another customer harassing our family like that. He explained that they had her in their office waiting for police to arrive and were planning to charge her with harassment. He asked if I wanted to press charges as well. I told him yes, absolutely, and that I just wanted her gone. After we filled out all the paperwork, my wife came back with our daughter. She looked calmer, and our daughter climbed onto my lap for a big hug, asking if the bad lady was gone. I smiled and told her that yes, the bad lady was gone. More hugs followed as my wife held our now quiet son. The store manager told us later that Karen had been banned from all their locations. Apparently, this wasn't her first incident. She'd been harassing employees at different stores for months, always convinced that random customers were actually workers trying to avoid helping her. We got our daughter's birthday presents that day, but we also got something else, a story that'll probably become family legend. Our daughter still asks sometimes about the bad lady who yelled at her mom, but she's not scared anymore. She's actually kind of proud that security took the lady away. I was the biggest kid in my school and not in a good way. I was really overweight, which made me an easy target for bullies. Our school was an all-boys school, so there was this toxic atmosphere where picking on the fat kid was seen as normal guy behavior. I'm into computers and technology. While other kids were playing sports or hanging out, I was reading about the latest gadgets or trying to figure out how things worked. This made me even more of an outsider because I was the nerdy fat kid who preferred machines to people. There was this one guy who had been bullying me since we were 6 years old. Let me call him Karen since he acted just like those entitled women you see in videos, except he was a teenage boy who thought the world owed him everything. Karen had been making my life miserable for 8 long years. The bullying started small in elementary school, name-calling mostly. He'd walk by my desk and whisper insults about my weight under his breath. Then he'd laugh with his friends while I pretended not to hear. When we got older, it got worse. By middle school, he was calling me every name you could think of related to my size. I complained to the school administration multiple times. My parents even got involved when we were in 4th grade. but nothing ever happened to Karen. Turns out his father was friends with our vice principal, so Karen always got away with just a warning. The vice principal would file reports, but never actually punish him. What happened during that meeting in 4th grade was terrible. When my mom and dad explained how the bullying was affecting me, he just shrugged and dismissed their concerns. He told them that boys will be boys and that they were just having harmless fun. He even suggested that maybe I would lose weight just to impress my bullies, as if that would solve everything. My parents were so shocked they didn't know what to say. They felt completely helpless, and so did I. When 8th grade started, we had the option to take an extra technology class. I was excited because it was right up my alley. Karen signed up too, probably just to mess with me some more. He would sit in the back of the classroom and disrupt everything. The teacher constantly had to tell him to be quiet, but Karen didn't care. He was more interested in making my life miserable than actually learning anything. The technology department was on the 1st floor of our school building, which becomes important later in the story. About a month into the school year, Karen's bullying escalated from just words to getting physical. He started punching me in the arm when teachers weren't looking. He'd slap the back of my head when I walked past him in the hallways. My father had always taught me to turn the other cheek and treat others with respect, even when they were wrong to you. So I never fought back. But one day, exactly 1 month after school started, I came home with a black eye and scratch marks on my face from Karen's fingernails. When my father saw me, something changed in his expression. He sat me down and gave me advice that would change everything. My father told me that I had the size and strength to overcome many things. He said that the next time anyone even thought about bullying me physically, I should mess them up badly. He explained that I would never have trouble with anyone again if I stood up and fought back. I had been holding in 8 years of anger, humiliation, and pain. My father's words were like opening a dam. All that rage I had been bottling up was finally ready to come out. The next morning I walked into school feeling different. I was still angry about the black eye, still furious about all those years of abuse. My first class was technology, and when I got there, the teacher hadn't arrived yet. We were all waiting outside the classroom. Karen saw me standing there and immediately started his usual routine. He called me a walk-in refrigerator and asked if I had eaten a whole cow for breakfast. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, feeling my anger building up inside me like pressure in a volcano. He kept going, calling me a big truck and asking what was wrong with me. He even made a cruel joke about whether I had eaten a cat. Still, I stayed quiet. But then Karen made his biggest mistake. He pulled back his fist and punched me hard in the arm, just like he had been doing for weeks. That punch was the final straw. 8 years of being called names. 8 years of being pushed around. 8 years of adults telling me to just ignore it all came rushing to the surface. I grabbed Karen by both shoulders and looked him straight in the eyes. I told him that this was payback for all the years of him punching me and calling me names. What happened next surprised even me. I lifted Karen up and threw him over the railing. We were on the 1st floor, so he fell about 12 feet down to the ground level. The sound he made when he hit the concrete was horrible, like a wet slap. But what came after was even better. Karen let out the most high-pitched, girly scream I had ever heard in my life. The other kids in my class just stood there with their mouths hanging open. Nobody could believe what they had just seen. The quiet, fat kid who never fought back had just thrown the school's biggest bully off a balcony. The vice principal came running when he heard Karen screaming. He looked down at Karen writhing on the ground, then looked up at me. I was standing at the railing with the biggest smile on my face. For the first time in 8 years, I felt truly happy at school. Of course, they called our parents immediately. What followed was complete chaos. When Karen's father showed up, he was furious. He stormed into the principal's office where everyone was gathered, the principal, vice principal, 4 department heads, and even the president of the school board who happened to be visiting that day. Karen's father announced that he was going to teach me a lesson I would never forget. He actually tried to punch me right there in front of everyone. But my father stepped in front of me and delivered the most beautiful uppercut I've ever seen. Karen's dad hit the floor with his jaw hanging at a weird angle. The police were called immediately, Karen's father was arrested for trying to assault a minor. While all this was happening, we found out that Karen had a broken shoulder and a shattered kneecap from his fall. The broken knee meant he couldn't play soccer anymore, which was the thing he loved most in the world. What happened to the vice principal was great. With the school board president right there witnessing everything, it came out that he had been ignoring all the bullying reports for years because of his friendship with Karen's dad. He was fired on the spot. When we got home that evening, my father gave me some new advice. He told me that next time I should just punch someone's lights out instead of throwing them off balconies. But there was no next time. Word spread quickly about what had happened to Karen. Nobody wanted to mess with a kid who had thrown the school bully off a balcony. Instead of being bullied, I became the protector of other kids who were getting picked on. Whenever I saw someone being bullied, I would walk over and stand next to the victim. I would ask what the problem was, and the bullies would always apologize and walk away immediately. I had solved the bullying problem at our school with one dramatic action. Karen's father transferred him to a different school after he recovered from his injuries. But we live in a small country and word travels fast. Everyone at his new school heard about how he got thrown off a balcony by the fat kid he used to bully. His new classmates started picking on him for it. Karma had finally caught up with him. The last I heard, Karen is currently serving time in prison for drug-related charges and theft. I guess he never learned how to treat people with respect, and it finally caught up with him in a big way. That day changed everything for me. Back before the internet was even a thing, I was scraping by as a college student. Money was tight, so I made ends meet by fixing cars in my spare time. I had this little setup where people would drop off their cars for repairs, and I'd work on them whenever I had time between classes. I'd been doing this for about a year when something weird started happening. Cars would come in with decent gas levels, but when their owners picked them up, the tanks would be nearly empty. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining things or that the gas gauges were just acting up, but it kept happening, and I started paying closer attention. Someone was stealing gas from my customers' cars. They were being clever about it too. They never touched my personal car, probably because they knew I'd notice right away. But customer cars that sat around for a few days were fair game. Some cars got hit multiple times if they were there long enough. This really ticked me off. These were regular people trying to get their cars fixed, and some lowlife was making their day even worse by stealing their gas. I had to do something about it, but I couldn't afford to stay up all night playing security guard. I needed a better plan. The solution came from the most unexpected place, my day job. I worked part-time at this industrial place, and we had these machines getting scrapped. They had these thick rubber bladders inside them with threaded connectors built right into one end. My boss told me to strip out the valuable parts and toss the rest. My co-worker thought it would be hilarious to hook one of those bladders up to an air hose and see what happened. He figured it would blow up like a balloon. Boy, was he wrong. The thing inflated a little bit, then exploded with the loudest bang I've ever heard in my life. Even with ear protection on and standing way back, I nearly jumped out of my skin. It sounded like someone fired a cannon. The guy almost got fired for that stunt, but it gave me an idea. I asked my boss if I could take a few of those bladders home, along with a dump valve from one of the machines. He told me I could have them since they were just going in the trash anyway. Then I called up my buddy and asked about his sister's beat-up 1974 Ford. The engine was so worn out it burned oil like crazy. You could see the smoke trail from blocks away. The car was basically worthless, but back then, even worthless cars were hard to get rid of. Junkyards would barely give you $25 for them, and most wouldn't even come pick them up unless you were right next door. I told them I'd take the car off their hands for free, and they were happy to get rid of it. Soon I had myself a perfect bait car. My buddy agreed to help me set up the trap. We pulled the gas tank out completely and put my big air compressor tank in the trunk instead. Then came the tricky part, rigging the dump valve to the gas cap door with fishing line. We had to drill holes right through the car body to make it work, but this thing was headed for the scrap heap anyway. The setup was simple but clever. When someone opened the gas cap door, the fishing line would trigger the dump valve. That would release air from the compressor tank into one of those rubber bladders we'd mounted under the car. Based on our earlier experience with my co-worker's mishap, we knew exactly what would happen next. We ran a few practice rounds to make sure everything worked right. Then I drove the car back to my place. Since there was no actual gas tank anymore, I connected the fuel line to a small boat gas can in the trunk just to make everything look normal. Then I parked it with my other project cars and waited. Nothing happened for the first few days. I had to keep checking the air tank because it had a slow leak, but I kept it topped off and ready. Finally, about a week later, I got woken up in the middle of the night by the loudest boom I'd ever heard. It took me a few seconds to realize what had happened, but then I bolted outside in my pajamas. Whoever had been messing with the car was long gone, probably broke some kind of land speed record getting out of there. The gas cap door was hanging open, and I could hear air hissing from under the Ford where the bladder had done its job. But what they left behind was even better. Sitting right next to the car was this really nice metal gas can with a length of rubber hose attached. Professional grade stuff, not some cheap plastic jug. They must have dropped it and ran when that bladder exploded. I like to think they thought someone had taken a shot at them with a shotgun. The mysterious gas thefts stopped immediately after that night. Word must have gotten around that messing with cars at my place was hazardous to your health. Problem solved, and I got a nice gas can out of the deal. I still have that can sitting on a shelf in my garage. The spout broke off years ago, and I don't even use it anymore, but I keep it there as a reminder. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.